Hi Mahesha, welcome. Hi Mahesha, I hope you can hear me.
Testing. Can I be heard?
Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear. So the idea is we mainly run it on Zoom for us, and then we basically we will be live streaming it on YouTube. That's our normal model. Prabhash, are you there? Hello everyone, and welcome to all of those who are joining this live stream of the PIM monthly montage. We will be starting off shortly, so do stay tuned, and really excited to be hosting today's monthly montage, and on a very interesting topic of fintech boom. In fact, what's stopping Sri Lanka's fintech boom? So we will be starting off in 2 minutes. Thank you. Jude, I request to be made a co-host, please. Thank you. Sorry, Prabhash. Or you just do make me a co-host, please. Thank you. We will be starting off in 1 minute. Mahesh, I believe you are ready and good to go. We are ready to start off in 1 minute. All right, so a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining in both via Zoom as well as via YouTube and our social media channels for the PIM monthly montage. Today, the topic is dedicated towards fintech. As you know, During the pandemic time, we saw a lot of Sri Lankans shifting to online models, online methods of payment. But what exactly happened after the pandemic? Like as life returned to normalcy, what exactly went on? This is something that definitely begs our attention and something for which we need to be paying much more closer focus on. After all, as you all may be aware, fintech globally is a booming industry worth billions of dollars. Payments alone is said to be having a potential to reach trillions of dollars. And added to this equation is the fact that some of the regional peers, such as Singapore, for example, recently had a fintech festival and they are positioning their country as a hub for fintech innovations. If you take India, for example, some of the platforms such as Paytm has managed to bring millions of users to the digital platforms. This once again begs the question, what is happening with Sri Lanka? How come we are not seeing that fintech boom? Now, today we are going to be trying to understand the perspective of a payment technologies organization and a fintech professional herself, who is none other than Ms. Mahesha Amarasuriya. But before I get to her and introducing her, it's time for some of our sponsor videos. And I would like to share that first with all of you.
SAP? SAP is the market leader. What is SAP? SAP is the market leader in enterprise application software, helping companies of all sizes and in all industries run at their best. 77% of the world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system. Founded in 1972, the company pioneered enterprise resource planning software, known as ERP, setting the global standard on how to manage operations and helping organizations do more with less. Since then, we've grown from a small 5-person startup to a multinational enterprise, with more than 100,000 employees and over 440,000 customers in 180 countries. SAP is in the business of helping companies become intelligent enterprises. By connecting experience with operations and advancing breakthrough technologies like machine learning, Internet of Things, and advanced analytics. We're driven by innovation and are now the #1 cloud business software company in the world, fulfilling our utmost purpose to help the world run better and improve people's lives.
So after a few messages from our corporate sponsors, our strategic corporate partner, MasterCard, and our platinum sponsor, which is none other than the PBSS group, we are back. So to set the context, I think it's only right that I introduce our guest for today, who is none other than Ms. Mahesha Amarasuriya. So Mahesha comes with decades of experience in the banking sector, financial services, consulting services, and a plethora of different sectors. Mahesha is also currently in the board for CIMA. She is a director of MasterCard Sri Lanka and the past chairperson of CIMA Sri Lanka, the country network panel, and she is a member of the CIMA Global Council. Mahesha has extensive experience in the areas of banking specifically, and she has been involved in handling private banking, cards and electronic payments, and also card services. She obtained her MBA from PIM, and she is also, as I mentioned earlier, a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. Absolute pleasure to have you with us, Mahesha. Always a pleasure to be welcoming you to any PIM event. And once again, welcome to the PIM Monthly Montage.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tarindu. Thank you for inviting me for this session. I hope I am audible. I had a slight technical glitch earlier. Can I be heard?
Audible, visible, and looks like you're raring to go and push fintech to a new frontier.
Okay, great.
So, Mahesha, I do hope I did justice to you by my introduction. I know you have a very busy and tight schedule, and it's also great to see Sandun Hamugoda in the background, probably wanting to know all the spicy stuff we are going to be discussing today about fintech. And welcome, Sandun, and a big welcome to all our partners, the learning partners of PIM, and also a very special guest, an entrepreneur and a digital services provider from the US, Eric, joining us as well. A big welcome to everyone here, as well as who are joining us live via YouTube. Mahesha, my first question to you is a quick overview of our current fintech landscape of Sri Lanka. We hear about the global potential, but let's talk some numbers in Sri Lanka. We did have Sandun coming to us last year and talking about some of the context, but would like to hear it from you. I'm quite sure this is a dynamic field evolving all the time. Where is the Sri Lankan fintech landscape as at now? Let's talk some numbers.
Okay, right. So let me just maybe take a step back, because fintech has now become like it's like a cliche, or it's like a buzzword. So let me just start off by maybe giving a little bit of overview of what it is and how we have evolved to where we are today. So fintech, which is the word financial technology, it refers to a firm using a new technology to compete with traditional financial methods in delivering financial services. So as simply put into words, it is the technology that is used to improve delivery of financial services, and of course it covers software, mobile applications, and all other technologies that come along with it to improve and automate traditional forms of finance. So this actually became or rather it started gaining traction in the 21st century, more like about a decade or so ago. But however, this is a concept that has evolved well over a century. So if we take one step back and see how this really happened in just a nutshell in a minute, even before 1916, the foundation or the infrastructure of fintech was being built simply by enabling the first electronic fund transfer system in the US with the use of technologies such as telegraph. And then when we come forward into 1967, 2008 period, that is where we saw the first ATM being set up in 1967 by Barclays Bank. Then there was the first digital stock exchange, NASDAQ, being set up in 1970s. And then, of course, SWIFT was started giving the communication protocol to support cross-border fund transfers. And then we saw the first move towards digital banking. So that brought us to the era of startups, and where primarily a mobile phone was used as an instrument to browse the web to do financial transactions. So that's the era that really gave that shift to create a boom in the fintech industry. And then there was also a shift from the West, where it was congregated in the West, most of the fintech, and then it went across to other parts of the world. So globally, the market is over $180 billion as of 2022, and expected to grow to about 300 billion in a few years, and growing at a rate of about over 20% on a compound annual growth. So as you said, coming into Sri Lanka, so Sri Lanka has about 100 fintech startups listed in Sri Lanka. So in context, if you look at in comparison with other countries, so we're talking about 2,200 in India, over 175 in Bangladesh, and then about 11,000 in US, and about another 2,500 odd in China. So China being the largest number of fintech users, with a population of 80% being digitally active population using technology to manage their finance. So globally, around 26,000 fintech startups are there. So if we look at in the context of how these fintech companies are segregated, so they fall within, I would say, the four main areas. That is digital lending, and we see payment, blockchain, and also in digital wealth management areas. And the growth of fintech was supported mainly by artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, as well as data. So in a nutshell, I think that's where we are today. So as we go along, I will add on a bit more on what stage of development we are.
I think that set the tone very well, Mahesha, in terms of where we are, how it all started. I think that was a fantastic background that you set. Let's ask the crucial question. Let's address the elephant in the room, in other words. And I'm not talking about me. The issue with fintechs not really taking off, because you see the boom in India, you see the boom in, for example, Maldives. And mind you, telecommunications go hand in hand with fintechs, I believe, because you need connectivity. And Sri Lanka had much better payment infrastructures, rather telecommunication infrastructures, way before India, Maldives, and so on. For example, we had 3.5G and 4G networks way before India and Maldives did. We kind of leapfrogged a few generations there. But still, we are not seeing that fintech take off yet. We see a lot of promising startups, a lot of amazing ideas. But Mahesha, what's the missing piece here?
Okay, so to start with, Harindu, I would say that the market itself, the digital market itself, is quite small. We are talking about 4.37% of GDP, or in other words, about 3.4 billion US dollar market. While Sri Lanka has about 27 mobile banking apps, the percentage of the population engaging in e-commerce is less than 6%. So that in itself is the kind of a constraint for us to think of a huge boom or a huge pace of growth in this area. However, having said that, we saw a surge in growth in fintech as well as the overall digital economy during the time of the pandemic. That is, of course, as a way of convenience, and then, of course, it also supported the health and safety measures in a sense. So if you look at a few numbers here, Tarindu, we look at the transactions, that is internet banking, number of transactions. We look at second quarter. So I've taken, because I'm looking at second quarter 2022, second quarter 2021, 2020, and 2019. So back in 2019, there was about 8.4 million transactions, grown by 64% by 2020 to 13.8 million. Then 130% growth by 2021 into 31 million. And thereafter in 2022, the growth is only 40%. So we see like a huge growth and a kind of a bit of a saturation, but yet it is growing. So when we see expectations or the forecast, there are statistics forecasting that the Sri Lanka e-commerce penetration will be 42.3% by 2025, and the internet penetration would be close to 50% by 2025, and e-commerce revenue is expected to surpass 4.8 billion. So these predictions are also there in the market. But however, as you said, when we look around, we feel that it's not growing as much as we want it to grow. So I see several reasons for this, or several key challenges. So I would say the first one is on the acceptance of digital payments by the end user. So there we need to emphasize here on the security data and security. So while issuers, acquirers, payment schemes have all taken a lot of effort and done a lot of work in developing that safety and security for data, that message also needs to go down to the end user. So there is data protection, there is PCI DSS certifications, there is EMV3DS to protect the end user and the transaction, the instrument being used, all that is there. But importantly, that message of security and safety needs to go down to the end user to encourage the end users to come into the market. To come into the digital economy and basically start transacting in the online platforms. Then secondly, it is about the end user experience. A customer is expecting a seamless digital experience. So research has shown that if there is a transaction failure or a decline, 40% of the customers who have faced such a decline will be very reluctant to come back to that particular app or website. And similarly, even a higher percentage, like over 80% of the customers may not be reluctant to trust that financial institution itself. So there again, it is important in collaboration, all issuers, acquirers, payment schemes, to ensure that right technology is used to give a seamless customer experience, at the same time safeguarding and maintaining cyber security. So this, I think, is kind of like a area like on a more broader sense, but I think it's really each individuals, all of us also have a role to play in somehow or the other getting into this digital space and getting our families, we are in it because we are aware of it. And individually, we should try to promote our own environment, our own friends and families also to get into it and pass that message around. It's really to do about acceptance.
I personally don't see myself being able to convince my mother to be really doing any digital transactions, but they are from a different era, if you ask me, but she is getting used with WhatsApp now. So that's a start. Mahesha, to address a very valid point you mentioned about the need for feeling secure. Let's look at the worst case scenario. Let's say something has gone wrong and someone needs to make a complaint. I think it's a fair concern that you and I might need to ask and have. Can a normal, ordinary Sri Lankan really go to a police station and lodge a complaint about a possible digital financial fraud? What would be the legal ramifications applicable? Would the police understand the real scenario? Do we have digital fraud related competencies within our legal bodies? I mean, these are valid points. I think that we should all be having. And what's our current status on regard, specifically with regard to the legal and security frameworks? Is the current legal and security frameworks that we have robust enough to handle this era of fintech, or if not, what changes do you see fit for our current systems?
So I would say that a lot of positive work has been done, and I think one good and a very important milestone in this is the Data Protection Act, which was passed very recently, 2022, early part of this year. Because the moment economy moves to digitalization, move to a digital economy, then there would be a huge amount of data being collected, being stored, and being used. So having a governing system, an act that governs the institutions that use such data is very critical. So I think that is a very positive step that we made as a country. But of course, this act is coming into effect in stages because it has a lot of work to be done. So organizations need time to really prepare and be a fully to use the act or to implement it fully fledged. So that is one step, and where that will actually cover the security of the data of the individuals. And really, when data is being collected, it needs to be collected and used for a set purpose, so that there is no misuse or abuse of data. So under this, a customer would also be able to raise complaints and seek protection for breach of the any of the data protection guidelines given. Then secondly, government has also taken measures on setting up a fintech regulatory sandbox. This is to support the innovators, the new upcoming fintech companies, to be able to have like a safe place for test their products and services to see whether they are within the to ensure that there is no breach of legal framework, and it also helps them to seek approvals where required. So this is another step that the government has taken. And thirdly, I also think the previous act, that was actually the act was there, the Payment and Settlements System Act of 2005. So there was new guidelines introduced to this act effective 2020 in June, which covered the payment service providers. So in other words, who we call as aggregators, covering this segment in this act, which gives again protection, because as an end consumer or as an end user, you'll be using these apps, and where there is a data breach or there is certain amount of security that is provided. But having said that, I should also add on to say that there is a long way to go, because this is evolving, and it is evolving rapidly. And therefore, it is required for the government, for the regulators, for lawmaking authorities to be flexible and be able to adapt and develop the regulations as and when required, along with the digital revolution. So adding a little bit more into it, I think this is an area which not just banks or payment schemes or the fintechs can do this alone. This is a combined effort where government, lawmakers, along with the issuers, acquirers, fintech, payment schemes, need to work more towards things like open loop transit cards to grow contactless payments, then tokenizations, enhance customer experience. So this whole thing is something which we need to work in collaboration. So that is where we develop finally the bottom line, developing trust and confidence of the end user.
I think that's a very valid point indeed, Mahesha. We are going to give you a quick break and let you off the hook for a little few seconds as we share some messages from our sponsors. And here we go.
What is SAP? SAP is the market leader in enterprise application software, helping companies of all sizes and in all industries run at their best. 77% of the world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system. Founded in 1972, the company pioneered enterprise resource planning software, known as ERP, setting the global standard on how to manage operations and helping organizations do more with less. Since then, we've grown from a small 5-person startup to a multinational enterprise, with more than 100,000 employees and over 440,000 customers in 180 countries. SAP is in the business of helping companies become intelligent enterprises. By connecting experience with operations and advancing breakthrough technologies like machine learning, Internet of Things, and advanced analytics. We're driven by innovation and are now the #1 cloud business software company in the world, fulfilling our utmost purpose to help the world run better and improve people's lives.
And we are back. So, Mahesha, talking about the journey of fintech in Sri Lanka and where we are heading to, what's the real competition for payment card schemes today? Like, for example, in Sri Lanka, we see there's a massive competition for payment card schemes with cash. So how is this whole war going on so far, and what are the plans in the pipeline from a perspective of a payment solutions provider and the industry overall?
So yeah, absolutely right there. Having the competition is cash because, as I mentioned earlier, so the digital economy is just 4.37% of the GDP. So that's huge portion is not digital. So at least trying to get it to maybe even 20% is really would be like a huge achievement. So if we see like what's in the pipeline now, what needs to be done, I would go back on one of the same points saying that it's about working in collaboration. If the pie is bigger, everybody gets a big share. So, I mean, I think the competition should be really to improve or grow the overall digital economy. That's point number 1. So then everyone in the economy will benefit. And secondly, it would be, again, how much of awareness is created at the grassroots level, at the bottom level, on the convenience of digital payments, digital transactions. Okay, say for a company, let's take, for example, bank, because I come from a banking industry. If the more of the customers convert to mobile banking and online banking, that would really ease the pressure on the number of branches that need to operate, the amount of overhead costs that need to be there. So that can be passed down to the end user as well. So there is a cost saving there. So is this message going down to everybody? Secondly, the speed, the convenience, that part of it, and reaffirming the security of it. So that will bring the end consumers into the digital economy. So sometime back, we talked about financial inclusion, and we were encouraging, the country was encouraging banks to play a big role in financial inclusion. So I think that stage has been quite successful, but now we are talking about digital inclusion. So not only banks, but fintechs, but organizations, I think everybody has a role in including or giving inclusivity to digitalization, giving access to technology, giving access to communication technology, information technology at every level, even the lowest grassroots level, rural areas, in any of those areas, the accessibility is there. So that I think should be like a project that we need to take on if we are giving a fight to cash. And then digital adaptation. As I think this would be more like for organizations, how ready is an organization to evolve rapidly and move along with technology? So 2 years back, 3 years back, when COVID hit the world, the country, it was a test of agility, and adaptability. So the companies that were ready to cater to the changes in the demand, the changes in the delivery patterns, the changes of acceptance of payments, was able to thrive. How fast they changed was a success factor. So likewise, being able to adapt, I think, is another key. That adaptability of a company to be agile, to be adaptable, and move along with the technology will again give that edge to move faster and grow the digital economy.
Mahisha, that's a very good comparison of where things are and that whole aspect of comparing between the cash and the card scenarios and where cards actually have the advantage. I think that's a very nice parallel that you were drawing up there as well. My next question to you is in terms of the opportunities for professionals. I mean, we see a lot of professionals who have joined us today in this forum. Then there's also a massive, vibrant community of professionals out there. Maybe fintech was not necessarily in their curriculums when they were studying for their study programs and all that. But then again, today we see that it's there in a massive way. So many job opportunities. Companies are openly asking for fintech professionals. Where do you see, or what opportunities do you see for professionals in this era of fintech? And to be ready for these fintech roles, what skills, what capabilities do you feel that the professionals of today who might not have studied fintech needs to develop and needs to be ready for?
So Than, it's a very good point that you said, that when those who are in fintech today would not have studied it back then, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever it is. So the world is evolving so fast that the children today are learning, going to school and preparing themselves for jobs that don't exist at the moment. So a good example is, now 10 years back, if we ask a young child, what are your aspirations? What do you want to be when you grow up? If he or she said that I want to be a social media influencer as my job, we would have been completely taken aback. But now you find youngsters telling that, what do you want to be? I want to be TikTok. I want to be a social media influencer. That's the job that they want to do, as opposed to 20 years ago, there was nothing beyond, being a doctor, banker, lawyer, teacher, that sort of thing. So that's how fast it's evolving. So I think it's really hard in a way to say what the future would be and what kind of jobs would be available in future. But if you look at now, I think fintech has kind of embraced and got embedded into almost every profession. So you take medical profession, for example, it has an element or like a space for a fintech professional to join in and play a very meaningful role, because it is not just about a doctor seeing a patient and just carrying out a surgery or a treatment, but there is more to do with online consultations, data-driven predictive analysis, which gives a more meaningful examination for the patient and a more meaningful analysis in that sense. Same goes with the legal profession or teaching or education. It all has a role for a fintech professional to be in. So as we see now, the skills I see are required, like we looking at it in present. I would think, I think you may think I'm saying this because I come from a finance background, but I think financial fundamentals, I think, is something that is required because it involves a lot of the data analysis, data understanding, because there's a lot of data that comes out. So digital technology, digital economy involves a huge amount of data. So being able to really come up with the right output with that, I think, involves a certain amount of financial understanding. So as I said, data analysis, then like network engineering, IT infrastructure knowledge. So all that comes as it is now, along with security, privacy, programmability, scalability, trust. But having said all that, Tarindu, I think really we are in a very volatile and an unpredictable environment. So if I am to say prepare my 1.5-year-old son for the next, after 20 years time, what sort of skills he would need to face the society at that time, or to be able to work in that society, I would not be able to really drill down to specific skills, but I would say in a more broader sense, it would be on adaptability being number one. How much we are ready to change, because changing is not easy. People are not very happy to change. So being able to change, you may be in finance today, but are you willing to move to fintech tomorrow? Are you willing to move to technology tomorrow, a technical company tomorrow? So that kind of change, adaptability to this environment, I think is a primary skill that will be needed. And secondly, I think curiosity, the urge to learn, urge to ask questions. Don't just accept, but ask why this is happening. Can it be done this way? Can it be done that way? So, so that curiosity part of your mind. Then collaboration, because we cannot work in silos. We have to work together. We have to work as a team, collaborate, get the best of everybody, and come up with solutions. So the ability to collaborate and work in teams, I think, would play a very significant role. And definitely communication, that will be essential. So I think these skills as core, like overarching skills that need to be there, while the specific technical skills would evolve as and when it goes, with the changes that will happen in the future in another 10, 15 years to come. So that's my take on that.
Interesting. Mahesha, a final question from me before we move to questions from the audience. And please, I request the audience to share the questions via the YouTube live feed or via the Zoom chat. Where do you see the future of digitalization? What are the technologies that we can expect? What kind of a digital fintech utopia are we really expecting? What's your take on this? Well, you're someone who is in the forefront of the action. So my question to you, what do you see as the future of digitalization, and where do you see it taking us to?
Yes, so I would say to start off with, so maybe somewhere in 1980s when we watched Night Rider. We never thought that there would be a time, probably a few decades later, that we might have a fancy driverless car being introduced to the world. So likewise, I mean, the future of digitalization, digital transformation is limitless, and it could go beyond what we could imagine. Just to share my own experience, some years back when the drone technology was kind of novel, and there were tech gurus who were speaking about this. And I remember being in an audience and watching these videos in awe that, can this happen? Can packages be delivered to rural areas, to doorsteps of people, and medicines be delivered? And I think every one of us were pleasantly surprised and pleased to see that it happening in Sri Lanka during COVID. We witnessed medicine being delivered via drone technology, it being used in agriculture. So, embracing technology to that level was actually amazing. So we have now come to the stage where we see a move from virtual reality to augmented reality. It is becoming part of life. Google Street View, and we see games, we see virtual fit-on rooms, all that coming into day-to-day lives and becoming business as usual sort of thing. So in an immediate, like a very near future, I think what we need to anticipate or look forward to from a financial sector perspective is like open banking concept, shared KYC, this is something which Sri Lanka, I think, needs to have on a very immediate basis. And then the use of artificial intelligence, I think, pretty much in most industries, and use of like blockchain, supply financing, value chain financing. Those are some of the areas that I see on a very immediate basis. But I would like to quote something from Mark Zuckerberg, which I read recently. When he gave his vision for the future, he said that in this future, you will be able to teleport instantly as a hologram, to be at the office without a commute, at a concert with friends, or in your parents' living room, or a catch-up. He expects there to be over 1 billion people working and playing in the immersive, three-dimensional world referred to as the metaverse. So that is something we could aspire to and look forward to in future.
Interesting. I really like that anecdote you mentioned at the end. I think it gives a very clear snapshot of where we are heading to. Masha, we do have about 10 to 15 minutes left, and we will be taking the questions now. We have one question shared with us. This came in via LinkedIn actually before the session as well. In your view, which Industry 4.0 technology do you think will have the biggest impact on fintech as we move on? Because as you mentioned, there is so much of different technologies available out there, but what technology do you see having the biggest impact on fintech?
So it would be like telecommunication would have a huge impact on fintech. And then artificial intelligence, as I said, cloud computing, all that have a huge impact on the growth of fintech overall.
All right. Okay. Mahesha, what's the exact role of data analysis? Because one thing about fintech that is quite different to cash is once you pay in cash, there's no digital trail per se. But here, whereas when you take fintech, there's so much of data available, and that the data we say is the new oil. How do you see this, the marvels of data analysis really being a plus point for businesses as they embrace fintech more?
So the availability of data, I think finally, what are we serving? A fintech or a financial institution or any organization? The ultimate objective is to serve its customers, to create value to the customers, to basically the end user, whomever they're servicing. So by using data, it could be a more customized service. It could be a more efficient and a more productive service. Because, for example, if I just take a hypothetical example. Now, as a credit card user, if a customer is visiting a particular outlet or a particular shop more frequently, and when he goes to that particular shop, he or she goes to that particular shop maybe for the 5th time in a period of 3 months, if there is a customized offer given to him, at the counter they say, okay, you have come to our shop 5 times, therefore you are getting 30%, not that it's offered to everybody. So that sort of basically delighting a customer is something that data can do. So this would apply to a fintech as well, because fintech again is servicing customers and customers use the services. So can it identify particular usage patterns and use such data? So going another step, like not from the customer front, but more on from the fintech or the acquirer or the issuer perspective. Again, the data can be used for security purposes. By having the data of customers' transaction patterns, by using artificial intelligence, it can pick up whether this is the actual customer. So there is an element of customer, the transaction authentication that takes place based on data. So if I use this device all the time and suddenly I'm using something else, that would trigger an alert whether my device has been hacked or my card has been hacked or whether it's anything suspicious. So that's sort of, so it's two ways. So backend has a great use of data, then to serve the customers in terms of customer experience, there is a greater use of analyzing data.
All right, thank you for that. Our next question is from Sabir Esfali. He wants to know, with new fintech products coming up in the market, one of the biggest problems of Sri Lanka is the restrictions of cross-border transactions. What steps are we really taking as a nation to get past this issue, or what steps do you think needs to be done to get through this hurdle?
Okay, so the reason why we have cross-border restrictions is really more of an economic condition as opposed to anything to do with fintech, because right now cross-border transactions are restricted because we have a reserve issue. We do not have foreign currency. So therefore, all financial institutions have taken this measure to restrict the transfer of foreign currency overseas in any form, even by making a purchase via online, still is a transfer out of foreign currency. So this would, we are hopeful, and we think that this will resolve, hopefully, with this macroeconomic policies being put in place, the political situation being stabilized, and the economy hopefully getting back on track. We see the fiscal policy and the monetary policies, and also the foreign currency policies getting on track, and hoping for IMF and other foreign funding to fall into place as well. When these policies are in place, it would be easier for Sri Lanka to attract more foreign funding. And when that is in place, I would think the cross-border restrictions would get installed.
All right. Okay. So there you are. On a final note, Mahesha, what's your message for any fintech entrepreneurs? We see a lot of young tech entrepreneurs coming up with new fintech ideas. How can they really take things to the next step, next level, in an environment where the overall market is not that quick to really adapt and adopt these fintechs?
Yeah, so it would be important that you understand your unique value proposition. I would say in general, for a fintech or any other company, any startup, having your value proposition, understanding your core strengths, and finally not giving up would be very important, because we are in unprecedented times, and none of the books, economic books or any other books, will not really give lessons as to how to survive during a time like this. Maybe we can take certain examples from other countries, but it would not be exactly the same. So therefore, be willing to change, be willing to adapt and be agile, and do not give up on your dreams and your hopes, and stick to your strengths, because you started a fintech company because that was some core strength that you believed in, and stick to it, and keep going, and do not give up. So that would be my message.
Fantastic and inspiring as always. So I want to thank Ms. Mahesha Amarasuriya, Director of MasterCard, for having joined us today for towards sharing her thoughts on what's stopping Sri Lanka's fintech boom. I think we discussed and covered a wide array of topics, and at the same time, it was also quite dynamic because she was addressing some of the key burning issues, including what fintech entrepreneurs go through and the skills needed. So we thank you, Mahesha, once again for coming on the PIM Monthly Montage and sharing your thoughts with us. And wish you good luck to keep doing the good work you guys are doing at MasterCard towards propelling the fintech sector or the payment technologies in Sri Lanka forward. Thank you for joining us today, Mahesha.
Thank you for inviting.
With that, we wrap up today's episode of the PIM Monthly Montage. I'm Tharika Amarasuriya, Senior Lecturer at PIM. And we will meet you not so far away in a few weeks' time with PIM Monthly Montage's December edition. We hope to have it towards the second week of December. We'll see you then. And until then, have a great month. And may you have the best of the season. And no matter what you do, hope that you stay profitable in your sector and you keep growing our economy to the best of your abilities. I'll see you with the PIM Monthly Montage of December. Tarun Amarasekara signing off.